Hello, I'm Brenda Victoria Castillo, President and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. NHMC was founded more than 36 years ago to eliminate hate, discrimination, and racism towards the Latino community, as well as to support the Latina writers, directors, and artists in Hollywood and beyond. On behalf of NHMC, I'd like to thank you for participating in the very first ever Latina superhero panel. From the very first time we saw someone fly through the air, superheroes on the big screen have had the power to influence generations, providing positive role models for our children that inspire all of us to be just a little bit better. Yet far too long, communities of color have gone to the movies and had a different experience, looking at the big screen and wondering, where do we fit in? Instead of being cast as those amazing individuals protecting their communities, Latina individuals have typically been cast as the criminals, drug dealers, the bad guys, the people that superheroes usually fight against. But times are changing and we are finally entering a new era. Welcome to the age of Latina superheroes. From Moon Knight to Namor to Bublito to America Chavez. More and more diverse voices are redefining the superhero genre and showcasing different journeys that make up being Latina. We can now see ourselves in people struggling with issues like time travel, threats from outer space, and more, all the while protecting our communities from evil. They are providing the next generation with that person up on the big screen that can inspire them to be just a little bit better. Finally, I'd like to thank Variety for partnering with NHMC to showcase these diverse voices that are truly redefining the space. Hopefully, this is the start of many more conversations in the future, talking about how far we've come and how together we can ensure that Latina superheroes become the norm and not the exception. So let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Clayton Davis. I'm the Senior Awards Editor at Variety. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation for the National Hispanic Media Coalition. We have a great panel today talking about superheroes and Latino representation in Hollywood. Joining me today is Carlos Valdes from The Flash. Hello, Carlos.
Hi, how are you today?
Doing great. Then we have David Castañeda from the Umbrella Academy. Hello, David.
What's up, Clayton?
What's up? We have Gabriel Luna from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Hello, Gabriel.
Hello, how are you?
You're doing great. We have Sochi Gomez from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Hey, yo.
Hello. And then we have Yvette Monreal from Stargirl. Hello, Yvette.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, Wilmer Valderrama from Zorro. Hello, Wilmer.
Hello.
Doesn't feel good to say that out loud now. It says from Zorro.
It's it's insane. Trust me, it still doesn't get easy.
No, it's awesome. Listen, thank you all for being here today. It's not too often we get to have a bunch of Latinos together. There's no food though, so I would like to fix that for next time. So if everyone could cook their best meals, that would be great for me mostly. So I want to start here with going around and tell everyone a little about yourself and who was the first superhero you ever saw on the screen throughout your life. And we'll kick it off with Carlos.
I'm Carlos Valdes. As Clayton just announced, I was working on the show called The Flash. For those of you who don't know, that is an iconic DC superhero who runs really, really fast. So obviously blessed to be a part of that whole legacy. The first superheroes I ever saw were mostly animated, actually. Like, I loved cartoons as a kid. So I was watching, animated Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, X-Men, and like Ninja Turtles, Captain Planet. Those were my superhero introductions. But I think live action, I think I want to say the first live action superheroes I ever saw were the Power Rangers, actually. like that was actually the first time I saw like superheroes in full out costume, like doing, you know, battling and stuff. And it's like this whole like, you know, coalition, like just like, you know, going at it together. So I think those are my earliest memories for sure.
Oh, it's amazing. David.
You know, my name is, as Carlos said, my name is Carlos. I'm just kidding. My name is David. I'm on a show called The Umbrella Academy where I play a superhero. It's on Netflix. Yeah, I mean, I got a chance to live in Mexico most of like the late 90s, early 2000s. So the first sort of superhero that I remember kind of attaching to was Neo from The Matrix. That was sort of the kind of like when your mind gets blown into believing that people have powers to use for good. And that was sort of the beginning of the, you know, obviously Thunderbirds and Captain Planet and, you know, Power Rangers were awesome, but there was sort of like make-believe, kind of like, yeah, I'm the Red Power Ranger, I'm the Green Power Ranger. But when I saw Neo break the Matrix, that was like, you know, I must have been like in 7th grade in Mexico, and like, I was just wishing that like a Morpheus would come out of nowhere and like jump the fence of my high school, of my middle school, and just be like, David, vamos. You know, I'd had this dream, you know? So yeah, that was sort of my first hero.
I love the introduction that he's like, just like, come, let's go. And then you just go, right? No.
Oh, I would have definitely gone. Yeah, I would have told my grandma. See you guys later.
It's awesome. Yvette.
Hi, I am Yvette Monreal. I play Wildcat on DC's Stargirl, and my character is Mexican American. I am Mexican Chilean. My mother's from Mexico. My dad's from Chile. And the first superhero I think I saw live action was Val Kilmer's interpretation of Batman. Yeah, that was like with my parents and everything. And Jim Carrey played the Riddler. So that was my first, I think, movie that I saw live action. But my introduction was to comic books. My brother was a huge fan of comics. He would collect comic books like X-Men, Batman, Spider-Man. And so that's how I came across the world of superheroes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Gabriel.
Hi, I'm Gabriel Luna. I played the Rev 9 model Terminator in Terminator Dark Fate. And I played Ghost Rider in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider. At present, I'm playing Tommy Miller on The Last of Us, which comes out in January on HBO. First time, I guess like Carlos, I think it was animated. I think it was He-Man. Was the first thing that I used to watch when I was a kid. And you know, and then of course Dolph, and they made the Masters of the Universe, which was the live action version of He-Man, which was looking back, I guess, you know, I love that picture. I don't think it's considered to be a masterpiece.
No shade here. Nope, it's correct. It's still great.
It's a great movie. Langella in the full Skeletor makeup looked great. But yeah, no. But then I think also Ninja Turtles, live action Ninja Turtles, and then Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, 1989. I remember going to the movie theater. My mother, she's a single mother, had me and my little brother, and she took us to go see Batman. We sat down in a row. We were very early. There was no one in the theater. Started packing in. And then they were like, all right. And then we were like, you know, I think we're a little too close to the screen. Let's just go back one row. We went back one row. Some usher comes in. Everyone look under your seats. If you see a green sticker, you're going to get this badass Batman poster and some cool merch. Look under our seats, nothing there. The guy sitting in my seat that I just vacated right in front of me, green sticker, pulls it up. He's all excited. This kid is, They come and they shower him with Batman posters and all this. So that's what I remember as a vivid memory of mine. But those were the first. And Zorro, you know, Wilmer, very, very happy and excited for that. And of course, you know, stories like Murrieta, stories about, which I guess is like the origin of that type of idea, the masked Avenger, you know. But yeah, that's where it started for me.
Well, I such a tragic story, by the way. It was like the hardest thing I've ever
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
Like my heart's
I
broken.
don't know,
I'm
man.
like, what?
It just sprung to mind. I had to just sit back
Really?
in that.
No. Oh, I hope that person enjoyed
Oh,
that.
it's fine. I got plenty of posters. I got all kinds of cool stuff now. There's my Ghost Rider posters up there. Everything's good.
Sochi.
Well, yeah, I'm Sochi Gomez. I play America Chavez in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is just crazy to me that I get to say that. But yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up alongside superheroes, like kind of my entire life, you know, all things superhero. So it's kind of just been a huge part of my childhood, especially, you know, from animated shows and movies. But mainly, I mean, I played with the action figures, I mean, of the people that I'm in films with. So that's really weird, but also cool. I mean, I mainly played with the action figures because I really like their outfits. Like, I mean, Scarlet Witch. But I feel like probably the most like memorable experience I had was like going to Star Wars, and they had like stormtroopers in the lobby, and I had like taken photos, and I just like I love that movie so much. It was like I literally went home and I binged the whole like original Star Wars movies, like start to finish with my mom. And yeah, that was kind of like the first time I remember going like, damn, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Which like wasn't that long ago though, when I really think about it. Life.
You're an old soul. That's why you're here. You get to represent now in this new generation of all the stuff we grew up with. So thank you for being here. And finally, Wilmer.
So I have the privilege and the craziest, you know, unrealistic moment to actually say out loud that I will be playing Zorro for Walt Disney next year. And so when I reflect back into the many of the characters and the many of the things that I've had to do in my career, you know, you look at the trajectory for some of us and for most of us on the screen, you know, we never thought that we find ourselves in this situation where we can one day be at a panel and talk to, you know, people that look like us, like each other, and say that we actually could play heroes too. So when I go back into some of those, you know, titles that actually made it all kind of somehow subliminally possible for us as actors at some point, I go back to, you know, I was born in Miami, but I was raised in Venezuela. So I'm Colombian, I'm Venezuelan, and I was raised in Venezuela until the age of 13 or 14 years old. So my first, you know, so I used to watch a lot of syndicated shows, right? So the first thing, obviously, I watched Zorro, you know, in black and white, and I used to watch it in Spanish, right? So that was like a big moment for me. My dad and I used to love Westerns. So we used to watch Zorro and watch every episode you could think of. Then it translated into other things like the live action Spider-Man, the live action, you know, Hulk, you know, all those shows from, I think they're from like the 80s, you know, the late 80s, early 80s. But they were, you know, in Venezuela, the content was like 10 years late, you know, so everything we were watching was like 10 years ago, you know, and so I watched all that stuff, and then eventually morphed into other things like, you know, like the cartoons were G.I. Joe, Thundercats, He-Man was my thing. You know, Gabe, you talk about He-Man. I just rewatched the live action movie literally the other day in the gym, and I didn't even finish my workout. I was just like, oh my God, the skeleton, you know? So for sure, like these were some characters that really kind of invited me to be, you know, to the thought of superheroes. So yeah, for sure, you know, there was a lot of that. And a lot of the ones, the funny thing is that a lot of the characters that I watched, a lot of superheroes that I watched, all spoke Spanish, you know, which it's a really funny thing to look back at. For me, it was somehow possible.
Oh, that's amazing. And looking at this, if I was really honest with myself, like Batman, technically, I guess is the first superhero that I saw, Michael Keaton Batman, but I didn't find out so much later in life that technically I think it's Howard the Duck. Because anyone's from New York remembers Channel 11 Saturday afternoons, they used to play like Masters of the Universe and all the older movies. As I saw Cocoon and Batteries Not Included, but I saw Howard the Duck, the much less raunchier version. So my mom just let me watch it.
Batteries not included. What a great picture.
I know.
Wow, I know you brought that one back.
Still holds up too. So one thing I listen, it's not invisible here that we're Latinos in a room or in a Zoom room anyway. And we're seeing Latino representation across film and television, and it's an increase. And while we can celebrate increase, we're still nowhere near where we need to be. So Wilmer, I'm going to kick this off to you first. Why is Latina representation still a problem in this industry? And one thing I just want to kind of lead into with you, I'm a big believer that, because I say we Latinos, if you ever go to social media, which is never the best place to have a conversation, we'll argue about what we want to be called and not the fact that we've been in less than 5% of movies of the last 13 years. And I feel like that's been a little internal civil war that's been going on in our community. Can you speak to that?
So yeah, so I think, I don't know, like what I've been seeing in the last 10 years of entertainment, I've seen a slow discovery from the studios and the networks and the streaming platforms of this thing we call mathematical metrics, where they're finally understanding who really is watching television, who really is going to the movies, and who is the most engaging and most loyal consumer you got for entertainment. That happens to be the Latino community. All the numbers and all the metrics that are showing up in the last year alone has been really created a path for the pivot of how you're going to have this conversation. The reason why I feel it's still very much a problem and a little bit of a slow snowball effect. There is a lack of trust. There's a lack of trust and understanding to these metrics. And therefore, a lot of them don't understand the opportunity that we've had. I think I take it back to 20 plus years ago with the first census that predicted the Latinos were at some point were going to be threatened to be the majority. Nobody knew. Everybody thought Latinos were a guest, even though, California was Mexico, California at one point, right? So when you think about the community as a guest in this country, as an immigrant, as a foreigner, they portray our stories as if we were actually minorities, when really we have the roots built in this land. And, we break by break built this country, right? So when we think back at how the evolution and where we're going with content, I think that we're slowly seeing, the conversation grow, but it's these moments that you see on the screen, these moments that not only they work, but they create a signal that you can't deny, that eventually will build the trust that's needed. And trust is something that's going to come back in this conversation, Clayton, because people like us in the screen have to build the trust between the storytellers and the studios and the networks to really allow us to run with the ball, so we can have these impactful moments and create a canvas where everything that you see on the screen is eventually possible.
I'm taken by what you said when you said trust, and I just want to, and anyone else can chime in here. Is it a trust solely with the studios and networks, or is it just within the consumer base? Because I'm paraphrasing John Leguizamo here, but we're 20% of the population. We contribute $7 trillion. We're not asking for anything more. We're just asking for what's ours. Like, we just want to see that represented on screen. So it's a trust that we're not seeing the people come out for us.
I think Johnny Legs is right, and he had all the data with him, and from what I understand in a lot of the studies, it's 1% of all leading roles in the top 100 films. We're 20% of the population, and he's simply asking for balance, as reality to what we see on screen. And I think a lot of what Wilmer's talking about is also, I don't think they trust themselves, they being studios, networks, how things have worked for the 100 years of of film and television. It's I equate it to climate change. All the metrics are there. We see it's real. But oil companies obviously are very entrenched in where they source their interests and their profits, and it has been this way, and it's very all of the science is there and all of the technology is there, and we can make the transition, but you're going to have to wring it from people's hands, tightly clenched fists on what they've had and what they've always had. And if you look at us in our business, it's very much the same. It's going to take it's all there. The evidence is there. The audience is there. It's simply going to take people to trust themselves that they are going to benefit from all of us trudging forward. And I think that it's still very much a matter of otherism and people not being able to see themselves represented in someone that doesn't look like them. I think it's very important. I say this a lot, is the way we talk about representation is we want to see ourselves on screen, which is absolutely true. Someone who looks like us on screen. And I think the next step is to have people who don't look like us see themselves in us. Mm-hmm. And that is, we're moving there, we're getting there. And I think it's a matter of, I want white, Black, Asian, everyone to be able to, just as I had growing up, seen myself in Black superheroes and Caucasian superheroes. It's a two-way street, and it should always have been. But I think we're moving closer towards making it that way.
Yeah, awesome. Actually, Yvette and Sochi, for you two specifically, I can't cite exactly what study this is from, but Latina women are #1 in small business creation. So Latinas are at the forefront of creating businesses, name brands, jobs, and we're seeing that with producing, but it's not trickling to in front of the camera as much. What have you seen in some of, or your own personal experience in getting those roles that aren't just specifically Latina, that looks like this, even breaking out outside of the stereotypes that they often put us in?
Kind of hoping to get, in that room, where all the decisions are made. I've kind of already, I don't want to say kinda, I always catch myself saying kinda, but no, I already directed my first music video. I co-directed my first music video because I realized that unless I'm in the room or, someone who looks like me starts making the decisions, it won't happen. You know what I mean? So I just thought it was, I always have this saying of like, actions speak way louder than words. And I caught myself not actually doing that. And so I just decided to start doing it. And yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I have an agent in directing music videos now, and I'm doing treatments, and it's not, once you start doing it, you start doing it. And I hope that one day I can start doing short films and slowly lead to a movie, maybe one day. But also, I mean, this is kind of something that I've been trying to do in every interview that I do, is adding the statistic that 1 of every 4 people that are buying a ticket to a superhero movie is Latino. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that we need more Latin superheroes. I mean, we are your best consumers. So I hope that if I just kind of keep raising this fact and kind of mentioning it, that, decision makers will hear it, fans will hear it. And I mean, other just Latinos will hear it and demand more Latino-led characters throughout the superhero genre,
That's awesome. Congratulations on your first music video directorial debut.
Thank
and
you.
yes, and tell them louder, the customer's always right. Here are your customers.
Yeah.
1 and 4, so listen to the customers. Do that, please.
I think just to piggyback off that, yeah, ever since I started working on Rambo, I started writing a little more. I've been inspired to create my own stories. People who influence me, specifically, like my mom, she came from Mexico, so I've been writing stories about her and a female action figure. I want to be able to create a story where it's like action led by a female. And I feel like the more we put in like Latinas and Latinx representation, that it's full of culture and not just like a token based character. I think that's where we'll see more like inclusion. And like, for example, like the movie Selena, that really hit with me culturally because there were so many things that were referenced where I was like, oh, that's home. Oh, I could relate to that. That's my mom right there. You know, she shows me how to dance, how to do the washing machine. You know, there's things that are cultural, like there's just some things that someone who isn't Latinx can't explain, and that's why we need those people to be included in the creative process. So I think just that.
Amazing. David and Carlos, for you two, and this can open up to everyone, but one thing I want to see more of, and like I love having Latino stories and stories about us. I love that In the Heights is about, you know, Washington Heights in New York City. Like, I love that. One thing that Oscar Isaac spoke to me about a few years ago was he loved when he saw Raul Julia play in Death of a Salesman. like it's great to just see Latinos take roles that, you know, they aren't specifically for Latino. We can just have people play a role and it not be a big deal or feel like tokenism, as Yvette was just speaking about. Brandon Perea in Nope this year is a perfect example of that. He's just Latino in that movie. We know he is, but it's never referenced. We just know that he is. So can you guys speak about your experience of like just trying to break out of the stereotypes of saying like, you know, David, I think you'd be great for this, you know, Latino character rather than you'd be great for this character?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think as sort of the connection between worlds and continents kind of open up, and social media and internet and all those things, you know, when I was auditioning, man, I just wanted a job. You know, I didn't really think about like, is this stereotype, you know, but because I was sort of in the space of the veil was still over my head to feel that I was still under the control or to the decision of someone that didn't understand my culture. But I didn't care, you know, and I think based on, you know, I think there's this disconnection between Latino actors and the community that doesn't understand the industry. My parents are immigrants. They don't, and obviously, look, everyone has a different upbringing and families and stuff. My family does not care about what they see on screen because there's so much to see on screen. They watch novelas, you know, and then we can get into colorism and all these things. And so it becomes a huge other factor. And so there's a disconnection between, I feel like, pushing the watch it because Latinos are involved, because as a Latino, and as my family would say, the more you push them to do something, the less they want to do it. And so I commend anyone that wants to be a storyteller and that wants to actually like go behind the camera and want to tell their stories, because then we assert ourselves in a position to sort of remove that element of being Latino in a story where it could just be a universal story that other people from other races all over the world, in Korea and Japan and I don't know, in you know, South Africa, they can watch it and be like, oh, I enjoy this because it deals with the 6 necessities of a human being. You know, the ability to feel significance, connect, growth, love, you know, and to kind of incorporate these things in stories that people don't have to think, well, they're this color. Why well, I don't understand that. It's like, we all understand the need to be loved. You know, we all want that. And I believe that, you know, now in 2022, like I'm very grateful, you know, of all the things that have kind of come my way for me to understand that it's like, we have a lot of power and we don't really use it, and forcing people to use it never really helps. It's let's just make good stories and hopefully be the people behind the camera to make the decision so we can hire ourselves.
Carlos, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think I feel really it's a really heartening sort of like shift that I see happening. I think more and more we commit ourselves to, you know, capturing authenticities of Latin experience that attest to how not monolithic our experience is as Latin people, that we do embody and encompass a diversity of perspectives on, you know, what it means to be Latin or Latinx, Latine. I think, you know, it's the more, like the more that time transpires, the more nuanced it gets, you know, because it is a tricky territory to simultaneously like resonate with the universal aspects of human experience and make it about that, while also at the same time honoring the traditions that we come from, you know. And so I think that's kind of the tricky space that we're trying to navigate right now. Is like, how do we do both of these things at the same time, you know? How do we focus on the universality of experience while at the same time bringing distinct attention to, this is where we come from, this is where my particular, you know, lineage comes from, and this is how I got here, you know. And I don't know, it's an interesting dance, I think, that we find ourselves in right now.
You just give me a great segue to my next question. Because you spoke about we're not monolithic. There is a yearn in this industry, and just I think globally in any industry that you come across, to generalize. Latinos are 500 million people that span every continent, come in different shapes and colors and amazingness, as a lot of times we are reduced to our language, you know, and put those types of qualifiers on ourselves. I remember starting here at Variety, you know, I felt like I needed to start at a very fundamental level when I started writing about Latinos, of explaining to people, this is what a Latino is, and this is what a Hispanic is, and they're not synonyms. And talking about how Brazilians are part of us, we celebrate them, they're part of it. What do you see now as, and this is for anyone who wants to take it, but what do you see now as Hollywood tries, and I'm going to be positive here, tries to understand us and not believe that we're not all J-Lo's and, you know, Eva Longoria's, who I love, by the way, but that isn't just us. You know, we're not all Desi Arnaz either. You know, we are Coleman Domingos. We are Ariana DeBose's. You know, what do you guys see in that space? Anyone wants to take it?
To tie in both what Carlos was saying and what you were saying, or you were asking about the fact that we're not a monolith, and how we are identified by the language. I think that that's an interesting area to be in. You know, I guess I have an anecdote where we were shooting The Last of Us, and Pedro and I played brothers, and these roles were in the source material were Caucasian Americans. We've now been put in this position, which is both of us come from that area. We were both born and raised in the area that the source material is. Well, he was born in Chile, but he lived in San Antonio for a great deal of time, and I was from Austin. It felt that the writers in some, or the creators at a moment in the storytelling, they were curious. They wanted to interject a few Spanish language words in what we were doing, and it felt we were doing it for the sake of trying to, you know, let the audience know what they're seeing is not an illusion. That we were somehow okay, yeah, we acknowledge that you're seeing us as Hispanic or Latinos on screen. And I had to, for a moment, I just simply, I thought about it, and as much as the incorporation of our languages is very important, and I think in this moment, I just felt that it was us on screen was enough. The very fact that we're there is already enough, and that we to acknowledge it, or just to put it seemed that we were once again, in a way, trying to appease the audience, in a sense, to make them feel that it makes sense somehow in their head that we're there. And I just felt that in Raul Julia and Death of the Salesman, or in any of these roles, or Oscar when he was in The Moon Knight, I think, or Gael most recently in this world, you don't, we're there. Us being there on screen is natural. It's realistic, and that I think if we just embody the character and just move forward, then it's I think that there's understanding will grow from that, and there's strength in that already. I want to create worlds where we are I think we're in an area where, to go back to what Carlos is saying, yes, the universality of it is very important, and then to find our little all the corners of our experience that we have. I think that I think it's a very, very tough area to navigate, and I personally watched my mother. She had me. She was 15 years old. My father passed before I was born. My mother was a 15-year-old widow, and I watched her learn the Spanish language in front of me when communicating with our neighbor, who we lived in an apartment building, and that my grandma was inherited from her husband who passed. And it was like 4 units, and we lived there on the east side of Austin. And I remember my mom, I was sitting eating with my grandma at the table. My mom would walk in back and forth, come and ask my grandma a phrase, and then she'd go out and talk to Cynthia, who lived next to us, and then she came back inside and figured out a few more phrases. And so I witnessed her learn the language, and then I've learned the language through school and through experience. And I do find that we all come from a different experience with that, depending on what little spot of the world we were dropped into. And but the more of us out there, and the more stories we get to tell, the more Yvette and Sochi create and write, and the more we get involved in production, then I think that it'll start to present itself in a more natural way.
Wilmer, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and to complement what everyone's saying here, I think I can follow up with saying that we are entering a moment of a crossroads, and to kind of reflect on what David and Carlos were saying. I don't think we've understand the responsibility that we have been given in this very moment. For a couple of decades, our stories have been paraphrased and have been stereotyped. So in this moment, while we show up on screen, we have a responsibility to create creative collaborations with the people who are telling our stories in this moment, until we have everyone else that can write and that looks like us, they write and direct their own stories that organically can be empowered, and it can be, worldly distributed by a studio and network or streaming platform. We have a responsibility to create these collaborations, because it's not necessarily saying like, hey, I'm a Latino on screen, is that we somehow have to retell our stories again. If we can reflect on the last 15 years of this country, a lot has been done to our community. A lot of credit has been taken away. A lot of our contribution, and a multi-100-year contribution to this country, has been deleted, for not only from the books of history, but from cinema, because it has been paraphrased, and it has been minimized, and it has been given the airtime. So when you talk about the responsibility we have in this moment to make sure that we say we are Latinos and we sound Latino, and to let that be enough on screen, comes from the authenticity of our collaboration with directors, producers, and writers, that we got to tell them, hey, by the way, I don't have to say, you know, hey, let's go get in the troca to say that I'm, you know, oh, no, that's, you know, that's Latino. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't got to go there, right? So I think the point is that we, the few that can actually be on a set and talk to a director and talk to a writer, we owe it to ourselves to actually stand up and say, hey, let me help. Let me help with authenticity. Let me ground this and watch the audiences actually tune in to something like what Sochi and Yvette were saying. They see themselves in this, you know, in the screen beyond the color, right? They just see themselves in that story. So a lot of the things that have been, you know, you know, you, Clayton, you cover Encanto. That is a story that somehow spoke to an entire generation, right? Encanto didn't just say, oh, it's a show, it's a movie for Latinos with Latino music, whatever. Encanto somehow invited every culture to see themselves in these beautiful sisters who all had universal roads to travel, right? And the traveling, that journey is what we went along with. And then what happened? Our heritage gained so much pride and so much fire and so much wantingness that actually created a signal among multiple studios to figure out how much more Encantos can we do, because this worked across all boundaries, all borders, and all cultures. So I go back to that trust. They have to trust us that our collaboration is going to make not only sense for the story and for the authenticity of our characters, but they have to trust us in the architecting of how we get this to our culture and to ourselves. Because even though we don't want to say that, we don't want to have to wave a flag when we're on screen, you know, we should let them know and trust us in the process that this brown skin is undeniable on screen. We should just allow our colors to tell the story. So when you tell me, you know, and this is in reflection of what David and Carlos and Gabriel are saying, is that there we are this crossroads right now, which is an exciting door opening, right? The door has just opened for us to get in there. And now for the first time in history, studios and networks are not pretending to have all the answers, right? They're just now literally saying, help us understand. We know what we've done, but if we don't cultivate our talent, if we don't push ourselves and we don't show up for one another, no matter what flag in Latin America we're waving, here in America and here in Hollywood, you know, the signal is gonna go back to another 10 years, because it always goes 10 years ahead and then we slow down, and 10 years ahead and we slow down. So in order to create that route, you know, we have to collaborate with one another.
Thank you for that. Yes, so you do not have to raise your hand. You are not in school.
Technically, I am still in school.
Yeah.
But to add to this topic, I mean, there's been controversy over America Chavez because she's an alien that's adopted by a Puerto Rican family. So she's not actually Latino, since she isn't actually human. But I mean, this is kind of like the problem when a character is originally written as a kind of just generalized Latino without specific history. So she was kind of meant to be a pan Latino, and we all know that there's no such thing as pan Latino. And I mean, we're hundreds of cultures that make up Latin America, so there's no quick and easy way to kind of just pack that all into one Latin character. It comes from a good place. They want to introduce a Latina character, but it also creates another problem if the identity just isn't, you know, specific. So I'm excited to see how Marvel kind of moves forward with America Chavez in that sense, and I'm just really happy that they're actually consulting Latin writers and working with them in the room. They had a woman in there that to make sure that it was all correct, and I appreciated that so much that they did that, because if they hadn't, I don't know, I would have felt really weird.
No, thank you for adding that, Sochi, because that it's a very good point, because actually you gave again a great pathway to what we want to see is just this. I think one of the biggest challenges here is a common message and theme that all Latinos, Latinx, Latinas can all say at the same time, right? When a studio or white Hollywood comes to us and say, what do you want, right? I don't know if they'll get the same answer, even though I think what we all mean is we want more Latinos on screen, period. Like that's kind of just whatever that means. But how we get there, I think that's where a lot of disagreement is. And Sochi, you when it's not specific, that has generated a lot of conversation. And this current argument that gets brought up is, actors are actors and they should just be able to play roles. There was a lot of controversy when James Franco was cast as Fidel Castro, and people were like, but he looks like him. Like, yeah, both things can be right at the same time. You can look like someone and this could be a terrible idea. Like both those things could be right at the same time. Because if we weren't less than 5%, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, yeah, actors are actors, play it. But since I can't see, Wilmer, David, Carlos, Gabriel playing Death of a Salesman on Broadway right now, or in the movie version, I'm going to care when there's a specific Latino role that isn't given to a Latino. So what is your take on the biggest challenge that we face moving forward in Hollywood? This is for anyone that wants to take it.
Okay, I guess I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easy. It's easy answer. Got it.
No, for sure. for sure. Look, I'm gonna reflect back on what Sochi was saying, because what she's saying and what she's doing with her career, specifically equipping herself to be more of a creative behind the scene force as she interprets anything, whether she tells it through a camera or with her talents on screen. I've had a production company for many years, and I've been developing and producing a lot of different things. And not until this very moment, in the last couple of years, where I've been given the opportunity to really be the first one to offer, the direction of where to go. And reflecting back on Zorro and the partnership I'm making with Walt Disney about it, and executive producing Zorro, I thought it was really important to go back to Mexico, California, and reformulate a route that tells the planet that we actually were here before this was the United States of America, and that we weren't foreigners in this land, and that so when we tell that story, when we go back and build the universe, one of the most diverse places, it takes place in Pueblo de Los Angeles. I thought it didn't get more patriotic than actually going back in time and retelling our stories the way we were, our contribution, how we were evolving, and what hand we had in architecting this side of the country. And so as we build this entire universe, you talk about like what's the problem, how do we fix it? I think it's important that we continue to sharpen our tools and we create these partnerships and start really getting in the game, and I think I gotta say, I look at these Hollywood squares, here in the Zoom, and it's exactly.
So don't be pitching ideas here, man. We can get a lot of people Hollywood squares going.
So I got an idea for you guys.
Yeah.
No, but I ultimately it's a very hopeful and very exciting future, because I think we could continue to dwell on the problems that we're experiencing culturally on screen, or we can continue to fuel the moments that are giving us, a Xochitl, regarding Yvette, a Carlos, a David, and a Gabriel, and go all in, with these individuals that have not only crossed over into mainstream, but has allowed characters to portray us authentically. And therefore, to me, when we think about what the problem is and why this problem continues to happen, I think it's important that we continue to pivot, because the door has never been opened this wide, for our culture to tell stories. I mean, look at the panel we're doing in this moment. When did we ever have the interest in the industry to hear these voices tell us, as an industry, that we can get it right? So I think ultimately how I love to pivot this conversation into is in how are we all going to get in the game? How are we all going to roll up our sleeves and tell this story the right way? And I've definitely pledged 80% of my company to tell these stories now, because I felt it was important to seize the moment of this crossroads and really just be the first ones to say, hey, let me show you this direction. You might not conceive the story or the movie this way before, but here's a way that's less travel, not by unpopular demand, but because it just was never shown to you. This is a different road, less traveled, because it was less traveled by choice. Now allow us to make the choice to walk alongside with you in this way. And I think it's a very exciting opportunity, because I guess I see the screen without these faces on this screen. Young people couldn't see themselves in a superhero outfit. Young people couldn't see themselves in the fight, right? And they couldn't see themselves as a contributor to pop culture, because pop culture really dictates multi-generational inheritance. So this is the moment we're living. This is the exciting opportunity we have to create the partnerships that really matter, that continue to make the ripples that my daughter eventually will wake up in one moment where there's tons of Encantos in theaters, where she's gonna see like, Daddy, I don't know why it's such a big deal. Yeah, she sounds like me, like whatever, but she doesn't know that Encanto is the first of its kind, But there is this opportunity in this era, and I think more excitement than sorrow right now.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off.
Yeah, please.
Oh no,
go
go
ahead.
please.
No,
you started first.
No,
Well, I was
no,
gonna say, just to piggyback off of what Wilmer was saying, I think it's super important for our younger generation to feel a sense of belonging, because when I was younger and I was watching Disney and Nickelodeon, although they did have these token characters, it did feel like, for me specifically, like something was missing. They had like these beautiful 2-story houses, and it just looked way different from how I grew up and the culture that I had. So I just feel like, nothing's more important than making the kids of our future feel good that they're here and to see them in successful positions. And we need people who understand that deeply, and that we're not just put in this box. So I just wanted to add that.
That's great. No, I was just going to remark on, because Yvette was there. We were all there in 2016 when Robert was starting El Rey, for instance, and in terms of what are you going to do? How are you going to put it into action? He was granted, the OWN network, Revolt, El Rey were all born out of what ended up being legislation that President Obama put into the diversity in media initiative that they started. And so really, we have to start to, and I love hearing Wilmer speak. He's a great leader, and I love what he's doing and with his production company and what he's always done. I remember that night when we were at Roberts. We were at Roberts meeting the President of the United States. He invited him for a fundraiser, and I remember when Robert received the President into the room. Wilmer and I were there with a clutch of people receiving him. And I remember Robert having the discussion with him. He's like, when we started this network, when you helped us start this is what we wanted to do. We just simply wanted to show the world as it is. This is what our superheroes look like. And he gestured over to Wilmer and myself. And and in that moment, the President Obama looks and he's like, oh, well, they look like superheroes. Look at you. Yeah, look, that's a nice gray suit. And that pocket square very sharp. And didn't think twice about it because it was. And he's seen it. And he himself is embodying it. And but once again, all the kudos goes to Robert for starting these things, for Wilmer for carrying the ball, because when you plant this seed and the trunk starts to grow, we got to branch out with Sochi and Yvette and everybody, Carlos and Dave, and everybody's creating. It's imperative that this happens, and you have to take the lead. And I'll just say this while you're here, Wilmer. I remember we were there when he was having the round table at the end of the night, and the way you took the lead, you stood and you spoke, and I had great admiration for you in that moment as we were sitting there, to stand and to be the tip of the spear in that moment. And I think we all will be well served to harness our own strength and harness our own focus, and press forward and tell our very specific stories, so that it can be, so that the spectrum can fully ignite, So
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think Sochi and I were invited to that roundtable, by the way, but I'm sure next time we'll get an invite on that, right?
You guys weren't even born yet,
Listen, actually, I'll take that as a compliment. I'll own that for a bit. My final question for everyone, and we'll go around the room. How do we keep this momentum going? It sounds dour at times, and then other times there's great successes, and I see it in this Hollywood Squares that we've now pitched, coming soon to OWN network soon. But I see a lot of momentum right now. And Wilmer, you spoke about the responsibility piece of it, especially like Encanto, how do we get more Encantos going? But how do we not place all our hopes and dreams on the shoulders of Lin-Manuel Miranda and then get upset when he doesn't get it 100, when he can't represent all 500 million of us, How can we keep this momentum go? Actually, Wilmer, I'm happy to go last. Let's start with Carlos, since you're in the middle for me, center of the universe.
I think, the hand of racism and colonialism is like, it's sprawling, it's everywhere, and it's caked into the foundation of our society. So I think efforts to combat that or ameliorate that have to be just as holistic. It's almost as if we need to keep our eye on the symptoms and the cause at the same time and tend to all of the different wounds. So I think it's not just about making sure that change happens in the rooms where people decide how to spend the money on content. It's in the rooms where people make the content, the rooms where people decide how to advertise the content, the rooms where people decide how to distribute the content, and also the rooms where people talk about the content and interpret the content too. Because it's all historically been done through a white dominant lens. That's the only way we know how to make money from storytelling, is through a patriarchal white dominant lens. So of course it's going to be a gradual shift. We're changing our perspectives, not just in terms of what stories we feel like can make money out there, but also how to receive and create audiences for those stories as well. So I think it doesn't just take a multidisciplinary approach across several areas. I think it also takes persistence, it takes tenacity, and it takes patience. And that, I think, a crucial part of that is representation. Because if we can see ourselves on screen, fulfilling several roles, not only can we feel like superheroes in our own right, but we can feel empowered to be actors or directors or writers or, people in working in creative disciplines. So all hands on deck, you know what I'm saying? That's what I think.
Good message. David.
Man, that's so good. All you guys have some amazing things. I'm so pumped, man. I'm listening to Wilmer speak, and I just want to jump out of my chair, man. I'm so fucking psyched. The amount of energy, and it's like 9:30 p.m. over here, dude. It's fucking crazy. Because it is true. It's like action, right? It's like, how do you move from action? Because everything else is theory. It's like theory gets tired. It's fucking tiring just talking about it over and over. Because I remember even auditioning in the late 2000s, 2010, 11, and it was just like, who is gonna be the Mexican or the Latino that's gonna get this role in this white project? And so therefore it causes in a certain way this isolation between our community, between the thespian, that it's like, oh wait, who's gonna be the person that's gonna get this role? I'm gonna make my cool. I'm not gonna tell you everything that I know because I'm afraid, because there's only one job in this film, or there's only one job in this TV show or this play or whatever it is. And there's something really dope that's happening right now that I'm listening. It's about this communal thing of conversation. Because what are you doing? What are you doing? What do you need? What do you want? What can I help with? What do I need help with? And to have this open dialogue, because within itself, it builds that strength to be able to, as Carlos is saying, change the mindset between the people that advertise, people that make the content, the people that make the money, the people that do it. Because at the end, right, you just want to work with good people. It doesn't matter. You want to talk about why did Franco get cast for this thing? Because he makes money. Controversy makes money. Producers know, if I cast this guy out of hatred or out of love to this man, they're going to watch this film, and I'm going to make money out of this. Do I want to work with that producer? Probably not. Do I want him to have the keys of my next job? Hell no, I don't want that. I want to make sure that the people that I work with just have good values and things that I see myself in, the person that I want to be, the man that I want to become. I want that in the people, and I want to see the mirror of when I look at someone, that if I feel bad about that person, it's because I feel bad about myself. Now, what is that? And how do I break that down and deconstruct that? So yeah, practice, not theory, and open communication within all of us to be like, hey man, if any of you guys need a fucking boom guy, let me know. I went to film school. I know what it is to like work in production also. So please hit me up.
Thank you.
That's
message, David.
Man, that's so good. All you guys have some like amazing things. I'm so pumped, man. I'm listening to Wilmer speak, and I just want to jump out of my chair, man. I'm so fucking psyched. The amount of energy, and it's like 9:30 p.m. over here, dude. It's fucking crazy. Because it is true. It's like action, right? It's like, how do you move from action? Because everything else is theory. It's like theory gets tired. It's fucking tiring just talking about it over and over. Because I remember like even auditioning like in the late 2000s, like 2010, 11, and it was just like, who is gonna be the Mexican or the Latino that's gonna get this role in this white project? And so therefore it causes in a certain way this isolation between our community, between the thespian, that it's like, oh wait, who's gonna be the person that's gonna get this role? I'm gonna make my cool. I'm not gonna tell you everything that I know because I'm afraid, because there's only one job in this film, or there's only one job in this TV show or this play or whatever it is. And there's something really dope that's happening right now that I'm listening. It's about this communal thing of conversation. Because what are you doing? What are you doing? What do you need? What do you want? What can I help with? What do I need help with? And to have this open dialogue, because within itself, it builds that strength to be able to, as Carlos is saying, change the mindset between the people that advertise, people that make the content, the people that make the money, the people that do it. Because at the end, right, you just want to work with good people. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, you want to talk about like, why did Franco get cast for this thing? Because he makes money. Controversy makes money. Producers know if I cast this guy out of hatred or out of love to this man, they're going to watch this film and I'm going to make money out of this. Do I want to work with that producer? Probably not. Do I want him to have the keys of my next job? Hell no, I don't want that. I want to make sure that the people that I work with just have good values and things that I see myself in, the person that I want to be, the man that I want to become. I want that in the people, and I want to see the mirror of when I look at someone, that if I feel bad about that person, it's because I feel bad about myself. Now, what is that? And how do I break that down and deconstruct that? So yeah, practice, not theory, and open communication within all of us to be like, hey man, if any of you guys need a fucking boom guy, let me know. I went to film school. I know what it is to like work in production also. So please hit me up.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
No, thank you for that, David. And we actually have to make it quick, so if everyone, 15 more seconds for each, and then we have to say our goodbyes. Gabriel, your final message?
You know, I think that is quite simply, everyone on this screen continues to do what they do. I think it'll tie right back into the very beginning, which is trust. Both executives who don't look like us and look like us, the people who want to make money, as David's saying, the trust comes when we step in and we deliver excellence when given the opportunity. And that's just the attitude we got to take in every job, because when we do that, everyone behind us is gonna tread the road a little easier, because the guy in front of them proved it. Guy or gal.
Sochi.
That's beautiful.
No, thank you for that, David. And we actually have to make it quick, so if everyone, 15 more seconds for each, and then we have to say our goodbyes. Gabriel, your final message?
You know, I think that is quite simply, everyone on this screen continues to do what they do. I think it'll tie right back into the very beginning, which is trust. Both executives who don't look like us and look like us, the people who want to make money, as David's saying, the trust comes when we step in and we deliver excellence when given the opportunity. and that's just the attitude we got to take in every job, because when we do that, everyone behind us is gonna tread the road a little easier, because the guy in front of them proved it. Guy or gal.
Sochi.
Yeah, I mean, money talks. So, I mean, we're 25% of the audience, generating profits for the studio. So just keep reminding everyone that all the time. Whenever there's a microphone in front of me, I try to remember to work in the facts and statistics about, how important we are to the success of superhero films. And then I usually, follow up that we need to see more of us on screen, behind and in front of the camera, and just to keep your best consumers happy. That's good business, isn't it?
So she's reminding us the customer is always right. That's their new saying. Yvette?
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, life imitates art, and the people watching have their views shaped by content. So I think it was way different 15 years ago, 10 years ago, but now that we have our platforms and we're able to educate, we're able to speak on these things, we just have to keep pushing the needle forward. So.
And the man with the sword.
Well, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. Everybody here on this call absolutely gets it and understands, what the next phase is. And if I need to spell it out, ultimately, I would just say that we have to show up for each other. This is a call to every Latino in our industry, no matter what role you play within the ecosystem of storytelling. We have to show up for each other. And if we have projects, if we're launching a short film, if we're launching a music video, if you're launching anything and you see that one of your brothers and sisters is out there swinging, we all have to gather around that person, and we have to continue to push everyone forward. It's really important for the survival of the signal. And the next phase of that is telling our creative and the narrative and storytelling partners, if you trust us, we'll trust you with our stories, but you have to trust us that we understand the process and how to get it to ourselves. We represent the culture, so allow us to be the voice you've been needing. And at some point, allow us to be the lead in the room, because if you can just sit back and allow us to tell our stories, you would understand that we really, really want to speak to the world. We want to invite the world into our culture. We're the fine line. We are Asian, right? We're every color. We're Black, white, Asian. I mean, you name it, where Latinos are, and it's a missed opportunity when they allow us to tell our stories and invite everyone else to discover this culture. So that's what I would say. But thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Felicia Mora. I am the Special Events and Programs Director here at NHMC, and I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this. It was awesome. I have grown to absolutely love superheroes in the past few years. I have a little 7-year-old, and he loves all of you. I think he's seen every single one of your shows and movies. He was Darth Vader for Halloween, not a superhero, but maybe in somebody's world he is. But anyway, thank you so much. I cannot wait to see what you all do in all of the work that you do. I'm really proud of this community. I'm really proud to be a part of it, and to have you all representing us and bringing more people and uplifting them and supporting them as we move forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.